Welcome everyone. Let's just wait for a few more people to join.
Hey,
Can
Oskar.
everyone speak? Hey, how are you doing?
All great here in Zug.
Cool.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Great. So Louis said that he has problems with the sound of his device or something, and he's trying to fix it, but at the moment he cannot speak, something like that.
Okay. Is he in the? He's not in the call yet, right?
He is, well, I don't see,
Oh.
well, probably not.
I don't see him. I see. There we are. All right. Adam, could you take notes, by the way?
Hi guys.
Hey.
Yeah, I can do it.
Thanks. So I'm talking to Jeff. He's on Riot. I'll see if he's joining. He should be joining. And then I think we're waiting for Dean as well.
Luis must be coming, no?
I wonder if people have issues joining the call. Let's wait a minute or so, otherwise we can start.
There you go, Luis is here.
All right, cool. Is someone from NIM here or not? I think maybe people are off for Easter.
We can read this, Luis, but it's gonna be a pain to talk to you like this.
You can write in the HackMD maybe that's because I won't get lost. All right, cool. Okay, should we get started? Cool. So I guess, yeah, welcome to the third Messaging for Web3 call. I think we have a few people who are off for Easter this time, probably. We changed to Zoom, so we can also sort of record these and put these on YouTube, hopefully, in case it's interesting to other people in the community. Maybe we can have a brief sync up round, and then there's some stuff we want to maybe talk about when it comes to Swarm and sort of follow up from last call. And then I know Validated Labs, there were some questions on interfacing and so on. And then Nim had some questions on simulation and so on. Is there something else that people would like to talk about before we get started?
Maybe, Oskar, this would also be a good time to maybe get into kind of a little bit more exhaustive list of projects in the space, because while digging a bit deeper into Swarm, and thanks for the first intro last week, Victor, it was really, really good. I was doing some reading, came across some other projects that I just wanted to bring up, and yeah, maybe that's a topic as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. So I guess we can get started with just brief sync, major things that have changed the last few weeks. Web3.
Oskar, maybe in light of the recording, we should also do a micro intro. Just say who's on the call from which team and what they do, just in one sentence.
Yes, absolutely. We can do that. Should we restart? Oh, hello.
Hello, I'm Fatime from Web3. I don't know if Jeff is still in the call.
He just joined. I promoted him so he can talk right now.
Okay.
I think that's a good idea. So we do like a super brief introduction for people listening, and then briefly have changed the last 2 weeks.
Okay, so I can start with the intro from Web3. From Web3, Fatime and Jeff are going to be in this call. I am a researcher in Web3 Foundation. I have a background on anonymous communication systems, and yeah, I hope to be able to help with the networking, especially in routing of the project. I think that's from my side.
Anything major that's happened the last few weeks?
Not from my side personally. I was very busy with Polkadot things. I don't know if Jeff has done much.
I started doing some things, but I haven't made some progress. Mostly so 2 weeks ago at the call we had, so by the way, I'm Jeff. I'm also a researcher at Web3. I also sometimes do anonymity things, though not enough lately. There was a request from Validity Labs to have sort of an understanding of what the layering of all of the different components is. So I started trying to make some notes on that sort of during the call last week, which was probably not the ideal time for that. But anyway, so I will at some point very soon, probably today, finish up those notes that'll just give sort of a high level picture of what things go where. And yeah, that hopefully will simplify, well, it'll hopefully help structure conversations. We've talked about a bunch of these things before, but maybe just having like the actual list of layers or whatever will help that, and not, what's related to what, etc.
The visualization of that would be really awesome. Thank you.
Victor, maybe introduce yourself.
I'm Victor Tron. I'm from the Swarm team, and here with me joining is also Vlad and Luis. Luis doesn't have a mic, so he's just writing. He's the author of PSS. We have Vlad. I don't know. He can speak for himself, but he's the author of Whisper, and now works on PSS as well, and so on. So over to Vlad.
Hi, So I'm Vlad. Yeah, I guess Victor pretty much introduced me, so that's it.
Yeah, hi, I'm Sebastian from Validity Labs, CTO at Validity Labs here. And Hopper is basically the project that, how we call it, what we develop here at Validity Labs. Robert is the main developer behind that. Robert is in vacation for the next 2.5 weeks, so not with us here. Yeah, so we're aiming basically at having a privacy-preserving messaging protocol. And yeah, over the last 2 weeks, finishing up a little bit of restructuring of our implementation. It has some nice properties, but I will not get too low level now. We had a very nice Gitcoin grant, so Gitcoin was quite cool. We had also some contributions from Web3. That's nice. That's what primarily has been going on here over the last 2 weeks.
There's one other thing I can mention. So it looks like Harry's not in the meeting. I don't think anybody from Panoramics or NIM is, but so there's one person who's commonly in the meeting is Harry Halpin, and hopefully we'll have more people from the NIM project in at some point in the future. They have a kind of a mixed-net build. There's some things I don't like about some of the design choices, but they have a bunch of researchers who are involved in the Panoramics project who they talk to a lot, and including Anya Petroyska, who's based in London. So hopefully we'll get them involved and help sort out things like cover traffic and stuff.
Cool. So I'm Oskar. I'm from South. I'm here with Adam, and Dean is unfortunately not here, but we're sort of all working on the protocol stuff from the South point of view, but from the slightly different emphasis right now. So Dean and I have been looking at sort of minimal viable data sync, where the goal of data sync is sort of just allowing reliable transport in a peer-to-peer system. And it's supposed to be sort of transport agnostic and these types of things. And we have started writing a bit of a more, we've done some experiments and so on in the past, but a bit of a better sort of requirements list and so on. I'll send a link here. We will post on our Discuss as well. And then Adam has been doing some great work on documenting sort of our current protocol in the various parts of it. So we're currently in the process of sort of breaking that up into smaller pieces. And what that allows us to do is that we're currently relying on Whisper, but if we want to move to something else, then it would be way easier to do that and be clear about what changes in terms of guarantees and so on. And that's also something that the data sync layer will simplify. I also want to mention briefly, because I think I've been a bit sloppy in some communication in the past, that the data sync layer does not put any sort of strong requirements on the transport layer. So that shouldn't be sort of an interface concern. We started an issue with sort of the rough interface in Riot. But essentially, let me set a link 1 second. Here's that issue, but essentially all the requirements and so on come from the immediate layer above. So that's more sort of the conversational security layer, and that's where things like MLS comes in, where there's some subtleties when it comes to these requirements for sequencing service or whatever. But it's not something we looked into too much, but we're going to try to have some person present at or represent Stavs at and this group as well at the MLS hackathon. It's probably going to be Igor from the core team. What else? Oh, I guess also we did this basic proof of concept to play around with Swarm PSS and feeds, which is essentially a log-based form of communication where we essentially using PSS instead of Whisper, and then using feeds to sort of to also push your updates. And then when you come online again, you can look in the other person's feed, and then you have pointers to previous messages and so on. So it's more of a proof of concept to play on with Swarm and see, and it was quite a nice experiment during our hackathon. yeah, I think that's it. Adam, is there something else you want to talk about with respect to this specification effort?
I don't think so. All have been said, so I guess we are clear on that.
Cool. Did anyone not go? All right. So I guess, yeah, there was a bit of it's kind of called, say, like the integration between the Mixnet and Valid Labs and Swarm, and it seems like both products were not super familiar with each other. So we said we'd talk in 2 weeks again when people have sort of a chance to read up on stuff. Is there, yeah, who would like to start? Like how are people changed their thinking or so on? Yeah.
So yeah, I took the weekend to do a bit more reading into things. So thanks for sharing all the materials, Victor. That was quite helpful. It's still, some things are a little bit unclear to me still with regards to Swarm. Maybe you could help me clarify. So basically, you have this incentive mechanism that is baked into Swarm, right? Is that already part of the current version of Swarm, or is that for the future to come?
It took some time to find the unmute button. Thanks for the question. So yeah, so it's not currently working. It already had at POC2 version. We already had a working version of the swap protocol with the checkbook contract and everything. So it was working. However, with the new network layer and with the rewrites, we still have it outstanding, and it's going to be finished, I guess, in Q2 or Q3. And at the moment, we have the protocol accounting mechanism implemented, but it's not hooked up with the whole swap mechanism for tit for tat and for check payments and etc. So that the incentive mechanism is quite thoroughly worked out, and also the new smart contract for the new checkbook contract is also done. So and integration is not.
Okay, I had the feeling. Cool. And the second question is, you basically allow you basically have this gradient, right? So it's more a spectrum kind of having a more whisper-like approach, or having something that is pretty targeted towards the goal directly. Towards the recipient directly. So if you go in the more whisper-like approach, where there will be many nodes relaying messages, how do you prevent spam in such a setting? Because that's where Whisper brings in their proof of work, right?
I mean, basically, the incentive mechanism has to take into account in the price of partial addressed messages that you have flooding, which is basically exponential. So that what we call the luminosity radius. If the luminosity radius is small, so then you basically give just a small portion of the address. Then you have to pay. So one step in the luminosity radius would incur kind of exponential cost to the sender of a dark message.
Okay, so basically, Victor, if I got you right, this means that basically your incentive mechanism, once is there, will take care of this.
Hopefully, yes.
Okay, cool.
So I want to add one thing. So in Whisper, there is this possibility of using the Bloom filters. And so every node can actually request to receive the messages only based on these Bloom filters. This can also be used as spam prevention because if you receive undesired message, you just disconnect the peer. But
Sure.
that's, of course, reduces the darkness.
There,
Yeah, so it goes in a similar direction as what Swarm is doing, in that you basically apply a Bloom filter and thereby you're increasing efficiency, but basically exposing a little bit what you're interested in.
Yeah, but exposing different things, because in PSS at the moment, so you can send a message, and it can have some luminosity radius based on the hash of the node, so node address, right, or recipient's address, let's say. With Whisper, those Bloom filters, they work a bit differently, so there is a little bit more flexibility, should I say? Because it's based on topics.
Right? They leak topics.
Yeah, and the topic, topic is 4 bytes of arbitrary data. So the topic is completely arbitrary. It's not bound to address or whatever else, and you can change it on the fly, which is not possible with node address, for example. And yeah, so it's a bit different mechanism.
Okay, cool. Do you guys have some lower level write-ups of how you basically implement this kind of on lower level? So what message, like what package formats you use and how this looks like and so on?
So with Whisper, I basically implemented the code, but so I've written most of the code, but I didn't write the documentation. Now the guy who is in charge of Whisper at the moment, his name is Guillaume. So apparently he is working on documentation now. I was talking with the guys in Berlin, and they say yeah, so they expect this documentation to be ready soon. I don't know. So I'm working in Swarm team now, so I'm not sure how it's there. Maybe you should ask Guillaume directly.
No, but my question was actually more towards Swarm. So in
okay.
Swarm.
Yeah, so the actual network level protocol is similar because it's using RLP and the same RLPX based dev peer-to-peer protocol layer. So it's similar in many ways to the current Ethereum protocols, so LES and ETH. But yeah, it's so there's no proper documentation for that level. It's I mean, if you're using Go, then it's very easy to see it in the code. It's kind of
okay. Yeah.
But sorry, I mean, I know this is not a ridiculous. It's a ridiculous answer, but I'm just saying.
No, but I get you.
You could have a quick fix, then it's well documented. But otherwise, the PSS itself is pretty easy. So maybe we should just create this bloody document already.
For us, it would certainly be helpful to understand, because that would then help us to understand, okay, what sort of anonymity guarantees, especially with regards to metadata privacy, do you actually have in there, and yeah, so would be actually interesting for me to look at. If you have it, please feel free to share.
Please, Luis, if you have a thought on this, please write it in the chat, or if you have quite a low-level tutorial on the peer-to-peer and PSS levels. I wonder if you touch on this subject, maybe you could write it. Thank you, Luis.
Okay, yeah, that was a bit my questions that I wanted to understand a bit more on the Swarm side of things.
And I also have a promise to Piper from the Python team to have this spec properly written up. So that's definitely a promise that I will have to keep to.
So maybe this is.
Yeah, good.
Yeah, maybe this is a little bit the separate topic that I mentioned before, but I was, when reading into Swarm and then also looking at this project called Loki Network. And if you guys heard about that?
Yeah, I've spoken to them some. Go ahead.
We're talking to them on Thursday as well.
Cool, okay. Because that goes in a similar direction, and they have basically kind of a fork of Swarm, if you want to say so. And they add they basically have a mechanism for detecting kind of good peers and not so good peers, and then they have some staking. It's pretty heavy what they do though. So they basically have a fork of the Monero blockchain, and they use some assets on the Monero chain in order to A, incentivize, but B, also kind of have a finger pointing algorithm or mechanism for disincentivizing bad behavior on their network. It feels a little bit heavy, I have to say though. But yeah, I've seen a lot of similarities, and they are based off Swarm.
So the same, Andreas not here because he's been doing some prototyping in based on some of this work in Loki and so on. So you could talk a bit more about that. I can send this link. I'm going to talk to him on Thursday, and then we can invite him to the next call as well. It might be interesting to see if there's any overlap and so on.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting.
Thanks for this info, Sebastian. I honestly didn't even know about this, which I'm feeling a bit embarrassed about, but thank you anyway for the info.
There's a lot of projects in this space, I think, now.
Yeah. Sebastian, I just want to check, like, does the requirement sort of thing, does it make more sense now, or do you have any more thoughts on that?
Sorry, which requirement thing?
So the fact that the data sync stuff doesn't have any requirements on the transport layer really, but the thing that Hopper or something like it would interface would be sort of more in terms of the double ratchet and MLS kind of stuff.
Yeah. No, that's good to hear. But yeah, let's maybe wait until we have the write-up from Jeff on the sections, and then go through it in a bit more detail.
So my general feeling that what you probably want there is the data sync. So there's a couple ways you could do things, but yeah. So the main constraint is that we don't want to be forwarding around the actual mix messages. So the data sync layer is probably dealing with something much closer to the actual content of the messages. And as far as one design that may make sense, and maybe people have opinions on this, is that if the data sync layer if the data sync layer is at some sense actually thinking about the decrypted traffic and therefore is running above the MLS type layer, and
So that's what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is that it's independent from the transport that's running, and that's by design because it should work with multiple transports, including things that don't have anything to do with the internet. So mesh networks.
Yeah. Yeah. So
that's a design choice. I just want to clarify that.
So the main consequence of doing that is going to be, well, I mean, I think it's perfectly fine. There are consequences, but so for example, if the message has expired, then you actually have to get it from some other participant. You can't just get it from some server. And that seems perfectly fine. People can say this was asked for in a recent message, so I'm sticking it into my message, and and everybody's all, oh, okay, yeah, that's history. I remember that history, but I don't need it.
So I think one way to think about it is in terms of more pluggable pieces. So we don't build a monolith, but we actually build separate components that could be plugged. according to what the end user needs. And this is also where I think something like how we want to think about Swarm and mixsets and so on, how they interface would be really interesting, because there's sort of trade-offs and different strengths and so on. So how do we make things as maximally pluggable, and sort of how do you see that interface looking?
Okay, so your vision is also that the data sync runs above the MLS-like layer, more or less.
Yes.
Okay, cool, perfect. Yeah, so I think we're in complete agreement. And
it's similar to the prior design as well.
Okay, cool, great, wonderful. Yeah, I'm happy to have people attempting to make that work. I mean, because obviously there's some technical challenges in doing that, which is why people like Matrix don't do that. But it's they don't look insurmountable. They just look like stuff somebody has to do.
So, are there any existing projects that tackle that then?
Well, Briar. I mean, Briar. It sounds like
Briar. Okay,
so,
yeah.
Well, you can. I don't know if it's the same problem, but so PSS allows you to mount a dev peer-to-peer protocol over it, which means that it can kind of pretend that it runs a TCP like stream assumption based protocol over it. So which can then be handled as of course any protocol, like with the decrypted content, and it shields all the PSS traffic and everything from it. So, and also Mainframe, another company, they've been working out a TCP over PSS. I don't know how much sense it makes and how far they are with that, but that was, I don't know if this is relevant, but you can define a protocol over PSS.
So I mean, we're working on that because it's a top priority just in terms of making the core application work. But I think it just in terms of separation of concerns, it should be fairly unrelated to sort of the mixnet layer stuff.
Yeah, and I guess that's helpful too, because it means you can parallelize these efforts more, right?
Yes. What it might be a bigger question is in terms of MLS and so on, in terms of potential concurrency issues and whatnot.
Yeah, this was also a bit a question that we discussed recently when we did our new version, where we changed quite a lot of things in saying kind of how far should we try to go, for example, with regards to like watching out that packets get delivered in order, or just not care about ordering and stuff like that at all. Because I mean, in a mixnet you have this problem that very likely, because I mean, very likely you have packages arriving through different paths, right? If you don't do kind of a circuit-based routing like Tor does, then packets will kind of arrive at random times.
Guys, may I ask that the largest context of what we're talking about within is multi-user chat. So it's basically messaging in real-time messaging apps between people, or actually all kinds of data transport protocols, and it's like really a larger context of data transport.
Okay, I'm not quite sure I understood that. Your one comment, from the application perspective, at least, the packets can be quite badly out of sync. So even worse than you would think from the mixnet. So I mean, that's just a reality.
But with at least with the double ratchet style things, that's dealt with, isn't it? At least to some extent.
Sorry. Yes, those things. Yes. So there's whatever. Yeah, the double ratchet lets you keep around cryptographic material for packets you think you might, and that handles that. And MLS should be explicitly. I mean, that's one of its main things, is making that work in a group context. Yeah, that shouldn't be a problem. Sorry, I missed some context there.
I'm curious, Victor and everyone from the Swarm team, how are you guys thinking about like mixnet design? Like, do you imagine incorporating some lessons from that in the Swarm initial design, or do you imagine like having a good interface where you would use the mixnet to then access Swarm, or like how do you look at these pieces from your point of view?
I don't have a clear idea yet, I have to say.
Yeah, I think they're fairly different things. So, so it sounds like currently Swarm is using this broadcast stuff. So maybe one model there would be sort of someone should actually be polishing some kind of broadcast design and just accepting that you're not going to be using it for messages between individuals and figuring out when you should really be pushing a broadcast type thing. And I haven't thought about that really at all because the broadcasts don't provide the same kind of privacy assurances. But I don't think it doesn't, you know, it does make sense at some point to have a broadcast layer for certain kinds of things. And I don't know exactly when, but, you know, probably what we have to have is a couple transports and we switch between them based on what we're trying to do. I'm not like low-level transports, but, you know, this kind of complex mid-level transport thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think, so you're thinking of MLS as being an extra layer on?
I'm thinking of it more, so no, not MLS. So MLS is something else. I'm not sure MLS even makes sense when you're talking about these very large groups where you'd want to broadcast things, though maybe it does, I don't know. They kind of do want it to scale up to very large groups. What I'm saying is the Swarm type design where it's basically a broadcast system, or maybe, so currently Swarm is a broadcast system. I guess the goal is actually to have, Status's goal is actually to have the Swarm things be more modular over a broadcast design or some more targeted mixnet-like design, yes?
Sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't quite catch all of it.
Sorry. So when you guys say Swarm, currently Swarm is using Whisper, and it's all based on this broadcast type design. And the goal will be specifically to have it work on this broadcasting work over this broadcast system for when that's appropriate, and then have it work over a more targeted thing like a mixnet for when that's appropriate.
Yeah,
yes?
Something like this, but possibly not having pure broadcast, just in terms of it's kind of difficult to have strong reliability guarantees. Right. So it might be that you have a so-called closed group, like more of a group, like multicasting group messaging, but sort of with different guarantees for large groups.
I see. I see.
But something like this.
Okay. All right.
No, he meant PSS and Whisper/PSS. My question on the Swarm stuff was just in terms of understanding how the sort of Hopper design and mixnet research, how it plays into the Swarm product as a whole in terms of both PSS and feeds and Swarm. If we sort of what we see as the most useful sort of way of combining these or not. That was the original question.
Jeff, could you maybe comment here a little bit on you mentioned the side sentence before, on the privacy guarantees of mixnets versus kind of this broadcast scheme, which was introduced by Whisper and which in a slightly different form, but still kind of similar, is used by Swarm today?
I mean, you're not going to get much privacy guarantees from a broadcast system at the end of the day. You're not going to get, I mean, but for certain kinds of messages, certainly there will be system-related messages where you need something like that. And there will be other kinds of messages, you know, where, okay, so there's another thing you can do, which is you can send a message through a mixnet and then have it broadcast via PSS or Whisper or whatever. Yeah, so And then the recipients, while they may think they're getting some privacy, they're probably not getting that much if they react in any way. If they're only receiving it sort of passively offline and not even showing it very soon to the user, then maybe because the user's not even paying attention to their device, maybe the privacy guarantees are better. But yeah, I mean, I'm starting to realize, I mean, we may still need something like that for some kinds of things. I don't know. Yeah, we're not going to be able to give privacy guarantees there, but we're going to be able to say, but we may say, be able to tell applications that, you know, we may be able to tell application developers that, hey, if your thing is really looks like a broadcast, then there's a scheme to do that that is somewhat efficient and, you know.
So I have a question on, so we have, so Lit Labs, you guys have Hopper, and then Harry's not here, but they have this NIM product, and then you guys, you're doing the sort of mixed net research. What do you guys see as sort of the most, if this is going to be end up being the same design, and if so, so what's the first milestone, the first sort of useful thing where there's sort of we're creating something?
It'll end up, at some point, we want it to at some point end up being the same design. Basically I need to sit down with Robert and get both of us onto the same page about the design at some point. So Robert and I at some point we'll do that and hopefully come up with designs that I like a lot, and I'm fairly sure I can sell everybody from NIM on whatever changes I like. The only really controversial thing will be the Validity Labs incentivization scheme, but that's that's a research work to try and improve.
So what do you think are the things that are not sort of up in the air? Like, what are the things that is there anything that we can roughly finalize already, similar to sort of the phases in Ethereum 2.0, where you have phase 0 where people agree? So for example, the data sync stuff is something we think we can finalize over the next few months and so on, but is there something similar in terms of simple phase stuff for the
I think
stuff?
Once Robert and I sit down and start going through it, I think it'll happen pretty quickly. It's just I've been too involved with signatures.
A very short comment. I think before we finalize things, we have to have a clear understanding of the design of the system in terms of routing, anonymous routing. But I think that's still up in the air. And I think if we don't finalize that, other stuff are going to be impacted, and then we have to change them again later on.
Yeah, the design I've written a lot already on the specifics of what the packet format and stuff should do. So I think I don't mean the
packet format, I mean how it's going to be routed. Who is going to make the routing decisions?
Who's going to make
Do we have that? Do we have written up as like a clear, because it would be great if we could make that sort of dependency very explicit and write like a clear problem statement about exactly what the concerns are and so on, so it's more clear.
Yeah, I can write that down. I can write the problems and the decisions that we have to do.
That would be awesome. That would be really
okay. Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, so most of the problems at the mixnet layer are actually on the PKI side, and the way to do that is going to be sort of precisely as you suggest. We have some phases where we say we implement this and then we move on to this other thing. The problem is that what happens on the PKI side is we very quickly move from what we sort of can implement and then we somewhat quickly start hitting what are research problems and we don't actually know how to solve. But at the same time, those are for like really aggressive scaling things. And I have been making some progress on those, though whether we want the things I've been doing or not is complicated.
I want to check briefly with Louis, so on. Do you want to talk briefly about sort of the group chat stuff or the thing you wrote in the email? Oh wait, are you muted? Victor, oh, well. Okay. Yeah, we could, do you prefer to do it? We can do it offline maybe later on in Swarm chat or something. maybe makes sense to do it because it's going to be a chat thing, so it's not great. It was a conversation about maybe doing some group chat proof of concept for the Swamp Summit. That's in, when is it? 1 month in Madrid? Something like this. We can talk about it later, maybe. Is there something else? Sorry?
To which all of you are invited. And we're going to have a communications and messaging workshop. It'll be really nice to have you all there, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to try to come. I think it would be really cool to see. Cool. Is there something else people want to talk about? I think we haven't touched on.
Actually, a short question of talking about events. Is anybody going to be around New York for the New York Madness Week there?
Probably, maybe. When is it?
Second week of May, around 10th to 18th of May. There's also ETH New York and a bunch of things, really a lot. So that's why I will be around there.
I think Dean will be there.
Okay, cool.
Because yeah, I think he's in New York around then. All right, cool. So I guess should we finish up?
Yeah, fine for me.
Right,
Thanks
cool.
for the call, guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, glad to know about this.
Thank you, Ron.
So glad to know about this swarm meeting. So I guess maybe Fatima or I, one of us, should be thinking about going to this as well. I'm not sure. Well, we'll try and figure that out. Maybe I'll just ask you questions about it, Oskar, and figure that out.
Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
Riot.
Cool. And could you check with Harry as well with the numbers and stuff? I'm not sure if I gave him some numbers.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
sure.
I'll. Okay.
All right, we can see. All right, I'll stop the recording. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Adam, for taking notes.
Thanks, guys.
See you on Riot.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.